In my school, I had a friend. In those days, we used to travel to school in a rickshaw. This friend of mine used to go to school with another girl. This guy would get up at 8:45, and the girl from the next building will get up at 10 to 9, and both of them will sit together and they will reach school without even talking to each other. One of them will look at this side, the girl will look at this side, and both of them used to be in rickshaw like this. And imagine this, they studied together for 8 straight years, and in this 8 years they spoke only for 16 times. You know what? You guessed it right. They wished them only during their birthdays. Are you someone who struggled to strike a conversation in a social setting? Are you that person who go to a network dinner and you are always on your phone, you are reserved and you do not want to let others speak to you because you're not sure what you're going to tell to that other person? And if you are that person, this video is for you. Here, I'm going to share a framework that will allow you to break through the shells that you have kept yourself in for years and create a relationship that's going to be meaningful for you forever. In this framework, I'm going to talk about how would you be open to any kind of networking opportunities. How will you have the right attitude to show people that you are ready and you're open for a conversation? And what kind of approach do you want to take? So all of this through my framework, which is known as SARC, S-A-R-C-C. So S stands for signal. Essentially, signal is the vibe that you throw when you are in a social setting where you allow people to know that you are open for a conversation. And this typically happens in a setting where you are amidst of strangers and you have not met them. For example, a reunion or maybe a networking dinner in your office. It could be in any other social setting where you do not have your comfort zone or the set of people that you are always with. Now, the first thing about giving the right signal or the right vibe is to have a smile. Now, it's very important. If you do not have a smile, if you have a very closed, frowny look, people who want to approach you will not. Do you see those people who will come and work, put their earphone in, and they're always on their phone or something? The truth is, a lot of them are fearful about creating a new relationship. Because when you create a new relationship, you're going to risk a lot of your self-beliefs and self-doubt, and you have to be open for someone to come and speak to you. Now, that's a challenge, and this is the challenge that most people fear to do. So, the first thing to be open in a social setting is to have a smile. So, when you have a smile, you are giving that signal to everyone else that I am ready and I'm open for a conversation. The next thing is the attire that you wear in the social setting. What that means is the kind of dress that you wear. Is it relevant to the setting? For example, you do not wear a jazzy fluorescent colored top with a jazzy leather trouser in a corporate official formal event. Similarly, you do not go with a boring shade of beige when it's a party that your office has organized. So, keeping the attire relevant to that event is very important, where you are giving that vibe that I am open for a conversation. At times you will see some people, they are oddly dressed irrespective of the occasion where they're coming. Now the challenge with that is, at the first glimpse of that person, you will feel a little shaky about whether or not you're going to speak to that person. The third thing about the signal is to keep your eye contact with people. Do you see those people, when you look at them, they'll look at somewhere else because they want to avoid that conversation. But that only happens when you are not ready, you are not open for that conversation. So try to keep your awareness at the audience. Look at their eyes when you smile at them. And the moment you lock your eyes with someone else, that's where the conversation happens. That takes you to step 2. The next step of having a conversation is approach. So how do you approach a new set of people? So the first thing about the approach is your intent for that conversation or for your intent into that relationship. Are you intentional about knowing the other person? Intention is followed by something called curiosity. Are you curious to know about the other person? What they do, why they're here, what is important for them? And the third important thing about the approach of reaching or approach of getting into a conversation or into a relationship is your way of asking question. Do you see a lot of people will ask you, hey, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. And that's the end of that conversation at that very moment. Instead, if someone asks you, hey, how are you? You say, I'm doing wonderful. How about you? What brings you to this occasion? Can you tell me why you are here? What is that one thing that you've taken out from this session? So many different questions that can help you strike a conversation. You can be prepared with a speech about yourself in terms of who you are and what you bring to the table. And that's your elevator speech. That's your personal value proposition. When you speak to people, you want to understand what is the representational system. Now, this is a concept in NLP. People receive the world through their five senses. So a lot of people either will be visually dominant, or they will be auditorily dominant, or they will be kinesthetically dominant. So it's very important for you to understand what is the representational system, or what is the most dominant representational system, and how do you do that. If you watch their words carefully, when they describe a situation, they'll be talking with imageries. They'll be talking about everything in image. Like, for example, if they're describing a problem, they will say that I was sitting here, someone else was sitting there, then this guy with the red t-shirt was sitting there, and the woman with a yellow top was sitting on the right side of that person. They are going to describe that situation in that way. Similarly, if an auditory person is describing that situation, they're going to tell you the kind of sound that they heard, and they'll use words like, this man was shouting at the top of his voice while this woman was listening quietly. That tells you that this person is more auditory. The third type of representation is kinesthetic, wherein they're going to use a lot of feeling and emotion when they express that situation. For example, they're going to say that while this person was shouting, the woman was feeling uncomfortable. I too was there and I wasn't feeling comfortable either. So you need to create that rapport by matching the representational system. So once you understand that if someone is visual in nature, you are going to use the visual predicates, which means you're going to reciprocate their questions or their responses or the conversation with such visual predicates. The fourth most important thing is the content of the conversation. Now, this is where it gets dicey. Do you recognize those conversations where you are saying something and the other person is reciprocating in a complete irrelevant way, and they're saying something completely off topic, and they're somewhere, you are somewhere. There is no way you are going to strike a rapport and you're going to have a good conversation. That is why the content is very important. So for example, you are in a setting where this person is talking something too technical in nature, and you are someone who you feel that you are not too technical. That is where you can use your curiosity to understand and ask that person, can you describe this to me the way you are going to describe this to a 7-year-old kid? And that's where conversation happens. That's where this person will start thinking to decode those technical jargons and help you understand the problem statement in a different way. And that's where conversation happens. So the first thing about content is your research, how well versed you are with topics around. And that happens by reading a lot of books, by learning from blogs, by learning from social media, by being available to the world to acquire the knowledge that is available out there already. The second thing about content is how relevant you can be to the conversation. Are you actually contributing to the outcome of that conversation? So whenever a conversation happens, there is always a goal that that person wants to get to. So are you helping that person to reach to that goal? Are you helping that person to have that outcome? And how are you doing that? That's very important. The last part of having a good conversation is the conversation itself. You are having a conversation where you and the other person is completely in a flow state. Both of you are enjoying that conversation joyfully because both of you are learning from each other. And remember, the only hack to have a good conversation is to have a mindset which is about the other person. It is always about the other person, how you can contribute to the agenda of the other person. Once you know how you can contribute to the agenda of the other person, that's where true conversation happens. Once you have mastered all of these acts, then you are going to be a very different person altogether, and no more you are going to be in that shell trying to be with your phone, trying to read a book, or trying to stay away from everybody who is out there. You are going to be that person who will crave for creating new relationships, and you'll find a new meaning about your life. If you like this content and you want to know more, why don't you click the link in the description below and join my WhatsApp community, where I train individuals of how to overcome their limiting beliefs and be a complete new person altogether, all throughout my NLP tools and zero advice coaching.